get a little information in the instructors' heads too. And they've probably succeeded. But the wonderful thing about this is that 10 years ago, you know, we started school, and we had a graduating class then. And now here we've come to the 21st class. 10 years have elapsed. And the missionary work continues on throughout the world, and we see marvelous expansion. This makes our hearts glad. This is an unusual occasion for the 21st class. We've only graduated one other class here in the Yankee Stadium. That was the 15th class. But here we have with us representatives from every other class that has graduated from school. And they're seated here in the auditorium with us. We're glad that they can be with us. And we feel as though we're graduating you again too, because we know that you all want to go back to your foreign assignments, take up the missionary work there with these that are graduating today. And Jehovah's blessing will go with all of you. Now this afternoon we want to hear from those who have been instructing these students and have been preparing them for the missionary work. And our first speaker of the afternoon is Brother Glass. He's been giving some good counsel there, and he's going to talk to them now for a little while on entering new fields for expansion. Brother Glass.
It's certainly a true saying that man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. Maybe we could draw a little comparison to those eggs you used to get every morning for breakfast down there, the unshelled ones, I mean. You'd look at those eggs there in the dish, and then you'd ask yourself, well, now what are they today? Are they hard-boiled or are they soft-boiled? Well, you certainly couldn't tell just by looking at them, could you? Boiling them in hot water didn't do much to the outside, but it certainly did change them on the inside. Anyway, the cook was aware of our shortcomings, and he'd always mark them with a slip of paper in the dish. H for hard and S for soft. Well, you've been steam cooked for about 5.5 months now, but I don't think you're hard-boiled in the strictest sense of the word. I think I'd say that you're just boiled. But in spite of it all, you did survive, and I know that all of us today are glad to see you here as a complete body, the 21st class. Now at graduation, not one member less than when you started. I wonder, though, what the final count will be at Armageddon. That's what I want to talk to you about this afternoon. Your graduation is not a commencement, not of a new or different way of life at least. We hope it will be a much fuller one, of course, and we're counting on its being one of even greater purpose. But you were ministers when you began your Gilead training, and you're still ministers today. The difference lies only in the place or the field of activity where you're going. The work you will be doing is the same work you did when you entered Gilead. There's only one commission, and there's only one work for the Lord's people today. Jesus said, "This good news of the kingdom shall be preached in all the inhabited earth." Now let's go back to the eggs for a moment. Before the cook put them into the water, they looked just as much alike as they did when they came out. Now, he's a good cook. He might get a little suspicious about an egg just by looking at it. But if he wants to be sure about it, what's the best way for him to find out? Well, of course, he can break the shell, and if it's really bad, he'll surely know it. and so will just about everybody else in the house. But if it's good, he can't put that egg back into the shell and make a boiled egg out of it. The only thing he could do then would be to fry it or scramble it. Well, now I'm going to compare you with the eggs. The society in taking you to Gilead just wanted to boil you a little. They didn't want to fry you, and they certainly didn't want to scramble you. But you know, there is another way that that cook could find out whether the egg is good or not. A way that's used to test for fertility, and that is to candle it. Do you know what it means to candle an egg? Well, you hold it up in front of a light, and one who is experienced can tell by the way the light shines through it just what the condition of that egg is. The society and everyone else who deals with you as ministers has been holding you up to a light, and you're seeing just as that light shines through you. That light is God's word of truth, and no surer standard of measure has ever been set. But when you carry that light with you into your new field of activity, it will appear to all who look at you only as they see it through you. And that depends on what's in your heart. Can you expect them to be drawn to that light if it doesn't shine forth with a clear and unclouded radiance? And just remember this as a parting word. It doesn't make any difference whether it's a hard-boiled egg or a soft-boiled egg. If it's a good egg, it's good to eat. But no one wants to take a chance on a questionable egg, and certainly not on one that smells to the high heavens the moment the shell is cracked. You can be sure the Lord will not. So why not make people glad to be associated with you because you constantly glow with the Spirit, and because your own expansion is manifest to everyone? If you do, you can be sure you will make your Father's heart glad, and you'll bring a shower of increase to his organization.
Thank you very much, Brother Glass. You know, we always teach the students a language. The difficult part of it all is that sometimes they don't get an assignment where that language can be used. But we work on the theory that if they can learn one language, well, they ought to be able to learn another. Well, this time we taught them Spanish at school, and I think they're doing pretty well. If we sent them to Spanish countries, I believe they'd all pick it up in another 6 months and have not too much difficulty. At least that's what Brother Bert thinks. He's the Spanish teacher. But don't worry, you're not all going to Spanish countries. So now we'll hear from Brother Bert.
New World language is different to Old World language. That this is true is readily apparent to all here this afternoon. Anyone coming into this convention assembly immediately notices something different. One would think he was in another world. In a way, he is. He is among the New World Society people. One of the features that makes this difference so outstanding is the language spoken here. It is a new language, a language that Jehovah God has given his people and which sets them apart as his people. The prophet Zephaniah referred to it in these words, "For then will I turn to the people a pure language, or lip, that they may all call upon the name of Jehovah to serve him with one consent." This text makes plain that calling upon the name of Jehovah and serving him with one consent is dependent upon learning a new language, the pure language. It is the language of the truth that must be learned. There's only one textbook for that language, and that, of course, is the Bible. We can see how the pure language, or lip, is an entirely new language to the people of goodwill of every nation who are seeking for the truth and for Jehovah's promised new world. It is a new language to them because their minds have no inkling of the marvelous truths that God's Word, the Bible, contains. Sincere people of goodwill need to be released from the superstition, falsehoods, traditions, greed, and selfishness that makes up this old world living. And that's where you prospective missionaries come in. You have the privilege and responsibility to take the pure lip to the people in their own lands and territories and preach it to them within their hearing. This safely, but you won't learn the language if you go from door to door and continually reply to inquiring people, no say, like you did in Spanish class, most of you. So graduates of the 21st class, no matter how well you know the pure lip language, if you make no effort to learn the foreign language of the people to whom you are sent by the superior powers, what good can you really do them? None. If you cannot teach them to serve Jehovah God with one consent, your purpose as a missionary will be a failure. Don't then expect them to learn your native tongue and have them come to you. Rather, you, from the very first day upon your arrival in your foreign assignment, begin immersing yourself in the language and go to them. Let your head whirl around for a while and praise Jehovah God that it will settle down as you preach new world living to all hearing ears. Be faithful then in learning your new foreign language. Then, and only then, can you teach them the pure lip language.
Thank you, Brother Bert. Now we have another instructor that you students know very well, Brother Dunlap. I've heard about the problems he's caused you, but this will be the last time probably you'll have to listen to him as far as school is concerned, and the next time you hear him you'll be less nervous. Anyway, we have Brother Dunlap here to speak to you on Show Your Love by Works.
Well, this is a day to which you've all looked forward. I don't mean just in order to be released from school, but it's a time to look forward because of the great prospects that are before you. But just for a moment, let's reverse the process and look back. Look back upon the time when you first got the truth. Think how far you have come since that time. From out of the world of corruption to a knowledge of God's kingdom. You became a witness in your local congregation. Then you became a full-time minister, a pioneer. You had a goal to use your entire life and energies in the service of Jehovah, the largest possible service. You were fighting all the time for the faith. You were working. You had love for Jehovah, and you manifested it by works. Then, after 2 or more years of full-time service, you put in your application for Gilead. Invited to Gilead, you've taken this 5.5 months of intensive training, and you're now ready to go to a missionary assignment. You've come this far then because of your actively expressed love for Jehovah. There's a false religious song that goes, I love him, this much I know, but how much I love him, I never can show.
Thank you, Brother Dunlap. And now we have another instructor that you got along very well with, at least when you weren't giving talks. But Brother Friend now will give you a little talk on hold fast to the faith. Brother Friend.
Some artists work in material like marble or canvas that will someday fall apart. Not so a teacher at our Gilead. His material are human individuals of interesting variety. Each one of them is his own brother or sister, and as such naturally dear to him. True, they too are perishable material, but they, he hopes, will never fall apart, but live on forever. Such, therefore, are not the ordinary run of students. Helping to model the mind of such by filling it with the knowledge of God and their heart with understanding and faith, I consider a divine favor and an absorbingly interesting, artistic, and even creative work. By this I mean creating under heavenly direction through his word and new world administration. Much has been given you by Jehovah. Therefore, more than usual will be demanded of you. Not that Gilead has made you a better or superior class of Jehovah's Witnesses, not at all. Your Gilead training has made each one of you a better qualified and therefore more responsible servant of God and Christ. In the book of Acts we read that Paul, foreknowing the perils lurking in the path of his brothers, fervently pleaded with them in his farewell address to hold on to faith. His words, so full of brotherly affection, well express my own sentiment today. Keep awake, he exhorts, and bear in mind that night and day I didn't quit admonishing each one of you with tears. And now I commit you to God and to the word of his undeserved kindness, which word can build you up and give you an inheritance among all the sanctified ones in the wondrous new world, so near at hand.
Thank you, Brother Friend. Now we have the registrar of the school, Brother Schroeder. He is also an instructor at Gilead, but sometimes he has other work to do, but he teaches a majority of the time, and you know it too. So we're very happy to have Brother Schroeder give you some farewell remarks. Brother Schroeder.
Truly, this is a festive graduation of graduations. What a throng of theocratic well-wishers are assembled for this happy occasion. Not only do we of the school rejoice to be in the presence of you hundreds of alumni graduates of previous classes, returning for a short leave from your foreign missionary exploits, but also to be in the presence of the thousands of you New World Society ministers gathered together from all parts of the earth under the powerfully spreading wings of our eternal eagle, Jehovah God. In briefly bidding farewell, I should like to say how much I appreciate working with you during the past 5 months. We had many mutual joys at Gilead. Now that school has finished, I desire to leave with you a few parting words. The great issue confronting the universe today can be restated simply as right thinking versus wrong thinking. While you were at Gilead, the faculty of instructors endeavored to revive and strengthen your right thinking powers. Right thinking is clear, objective thinking. It is thinking in a straight line, in harmony with divine truth and proved principles. It is like Jesus illustrated, going in through the narrow gate, that you may continue to be on the right side for that glorious victory. Keep the seat of your mental powers well protected with the helmet of salvation. For the remainder of this pre-Armageddon time, may you be happy warriors and fellow liberators under Christ Jesus as you rescue multitudes of other sheep from death-dealing wrong thinking. As you go forth now to your foreign assignments, our hearts and prayers will go with you. From the words of Paul, we of Gilead say in farewell, keep having the mind of Christ, that you may know the mind of Jehovah, and thus speak freely of God's hidden wisdom.
Thank you, Brother Schroeder. In connection with the Gilead School at South Lansing in New York State, the Society has a farm where we raise food for the Bethel family, the school family. So in connection with that farm, we have Brother Marcus, and he looks after the affairs of the students about 2:30 in the afternoon until 5:30. He keeps them busy with a few chores around the place and helping to keep the Gilead School in order. So we'll hear from Brother Marcus.
What could be a happier occasion than this, to see so many from many parts of the world wish Jehovah's blessing upon you, the 21st class of Gilead, graduating today. This should be an outstanding event in your lives, a milestone to keep you on the right road as you carry on faithfully preaching the kingdom message as a missionary in faraway places with your brothers. Jehovah, our everlasting Father, will faithfully uphold you. His organization, our mother, will ever aid you. Your brothers will continue to support you. Now it's up to you to prove you are a faithful and obedient and loving child of God. The many hundreds of graduates here today from previous classes are living examples of successful living and working together as a unit in a missionary home. They have been successful. They have brought forth fruit. They have brought happiness to themselves and others. Ask them. Now as you go forward to all parts of the world, prove to your brothers that you, the 21st class, have advanced in learning and understanding, works and love, that you are fit for the task ahead. Continue then faithfully, patiently, and lovingly with Jehovah, our Father, His mighty organization, our Mother, and your brothers, God's children, and live happily now and forever in the new world.
Thank you, Brother Marcus. We have with us, too, the Vice President of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead and also of the Society, Brother Franz, and he'll give us some counsel. Brother Franz.
This occasion well reminds me of an appropriate text. given by the Apostle Paul to the young man Timothy. Be watchful in all things, endure afflictions, do missionary work, fully accomplish your ministry. This was said to a man who was an overseer in a congregation. But it does not apply strictly to men. As we survey this tremendous crowd here in Yankee Stadium, and in particular these 127 graduates of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead, we see that the feminine folk predominate, the ladies, the sisters. They are not excluded from this command to do missionary work. You will recall Psalm 68, verse 11, which says, Jehovah gave the word, great was the company of those that published it. It is interesting to note in this connection that this word translated company that published it is really in the feminine gender. So that correctly translated by the Hebrew scholar Leeser, the meaning of that verse, Psalm 68, verse 11, is, the Lord gave happy tidings. They are published by the female messengers, a numerous host. And certainly the female messengers in the New World Society are a very numerous host, and we're glad of it. It is missionaries that are being graduated today. What does that mean? That means that each one of these is in possession of a mission. He is sent forth on a mission. He is one sent. That is the particular sense of the word missionary. But of course our interest attaches particularly to what one is sent to do or to deliver. You are a missionary in that you are sent. And you know you are sent by Jehovah God through his organization, theocratic. But if we take the marginal reading of the New World Translation of this text, do missionary work, we see that it can also be rendered, do the work of an evangelist. Evangelist means a bearer of good news. It means that he is a good angel, and an angel means a messenger. So that we see that the basic significance of missionary and of evangelist are one and the same, because if an evangelist is a bearer of good news, if he's a good angel, if he's a good messenger, that means he has to be sent, because what are news for? Good news, but to send out. What is a messenger used for? He's to be sent to carry a message to others. These graduates are being sent to foreign fields. In the main, these are fields where a different language is spoken. They must therefore learn the language or learn to know the language of the field. By that I mean not only to speak the language that is there talked, but to understand the message as it is talked to them. And not only to understand what the people say by their tongues, but also by their actions and by their customs and their habits, so that you can appreciate the feel of these people and enter sympathetically into their way of life and of expressing themselves. Do not depend merely upon the literature or the recordings in the language of that field. So you are sent to bear good news to these people. Take an attitude toward them, not of a hireling, one who is paid commercially or with material goods, but take a loving interest in these people because they really belong to the Lord God. Watch their spiritual condition, as the proverb says, "Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds." So visit your flocks, your herds, regularly, like a doctor does his patients, to watch the case. Your work is a case particularly of spiritual healing, and that spiritual healing will affect the mind, it'll affect the heart, and it'll affect the conduct. Your business is to keep the flock of Jehovah God in fine condition. And if you do this, the reward will be great to you. But I want to emphasize one point. Don't be interested only in the people. You are being sent out as missionaries 2 by 2 or in larger groups. Be interested also in your fellow missionary and be determined to get along with them. I am reminded of an admiral of the American Navy who was sent on polar expedition down in the Antarctic region. And during the winter that they spent there, advanced post observations were to be made. This admiral took up the position. When asked whether he wanted a companion with him in his little cabin there in the lone frozen waste, he said, "No, I don't want anybody with me." He said that you can take 2 people who are the closest friends, very fond of one another, but you coop them up in close quarters or put them in a boat so that they have to sit opposite one another day by day and look at one another day by day and talk to just themselves day by day, and in course of time they'll get to hating one another, despising one another, and wish to get rid of one another. Well, he abode alone in his little cabin, but he was almost overcome by the fumes of his lamp, and when he failed to send radio responses to the base, they had to send out a rescue party to him and save him from dying. From this we note that we should not develop an aloneness, try to be alone to ourselves and live to ourselves. It is a fact that aloneness can lead to madness, and especially so since aloneness is not the arrangement that Jehovah God has enjoined upon his people. It's true familiarity breeds contempt. Close touch with one another's weaknesses may lead to impatience, boredom, and a sense of being burdened. You may feel limited in your free movement. And you might say, as you come in contact with your fellow missionary or missionaries day by day and get to know them most intimately, do I have to put up with this the rest of my time here? And this feeling might lead to hatred and to detesting the sight of one another. Cases like that have occurred. But this is not necessarily the case. It should not be. For we have a counteractive to this, and that is Jehovah God's Spirit. We must cultivate the fruitage of the Spirit of Jehovah God, which is love. And when we're moved to any improper feelings toward our closest co-workers in the missionary field through our daily and continual contact with them, then it would do us a lot of good to go and sit down and read the first epistle to the Corinthians and the 13th chapter about love. Love does not stay alone. Self-love can lead you to aloneness, but that is selfishness. It's not love. Why, take a young man who loves a young lady. You can't keep him away from her. I used to be young myself. But love cannot stay alone. Love is always seeking for the object of its love and affection. So love your fellow missionary. Stay close to them. Work with them. Do not seek to be waited on to have others step aside for you to have things to your own convenience. Always be thinking positively some way to try to help your fellow missionary instead of being helped. And live together like a human family. Develop a real affection for one another, like a normal human family does. After all, we're from the same spiritual womb, aren't we? We're all brought up by the truth, and so we can develop a love for one another and live together as a family of God's children. Well, there are many other things that could be said about in the way of counsel, but here's one parting thought I want to say, and that is this. Listen to the president of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead. He tries to keep in regular touch with you, and you keep in constant touch with him. And he tries to visit you as often as he can because he loves you. And he is looking well to the state of Jehovah's flocks, and he's taking care of Jehovah's herds as far as is his responsibility. And so now it is my pleasure and privilege to leave the speaker stand to the president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society.
It certainly is a wonderful privilege to be able to talk to this grand audience of Jehovah's Witnesses, which make up part of the New World Society. You have had your heart set on coming here for quite some time, and now you're here. And many of the people that you have been talking to in the last few months probably have come along with you, and many that you've talked to during the past few years have settled down, taken a new course of life, and have joined with you here in this New World Society of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now this afternoon I want to talk to you about gathering men of all nations into one flock. It is heart-cheering to think that men of all the many different nations will be gathered into one flock. All men are of one flesh. All are one human race. The welfare of one means the welfare of all. Oh, how the sincere heart yearns for the time when all who live on earth will be united as one family, with justice and equality enjoyed by all, and with love binding the members indivisibly one to the other. That heart yearning of those who are sickened at the sight of mankind selfishly and violently divided against itself will be satisfied, and that right soon. No one desires a united human family more than man's Creator himself does, and this is his purpose to bring into existence. In writing over his own name, he has told us so, and he will never let his written word become a mere scrap of paper unfulfilled. His own name is at stake. The lasting good of men of all nations is at stake. These things are of high concern to the self-respecting Creator, for which reason he will gather all men of goodwill into the one peaceful fold. We are living at the chosen time for him to do this, and it is a wonderful time in which to be living and witness his doing it. All men are like sheep from many standpoints. The way men perish without an understanding of their Creator, and in such vast numbers as victims of murderous slaughter, as victims of death in general, they could be sheep. The inspired psalmist correctly described their case, saying, like sheep, they are appointed for Sheol, the region of the dead. Death shall be their shepherd. Straight to the grave they descend, and their forms shall waste away. Sheol shall be their house. Like sheep, they have been prone to follow a leader en masse. But to their sorrow and destruction, they have followed and entrusted themselves to wrong leaders. Ambitious men have assumed to be shepherds of humanity, just to take advantage of them and to serve themselves and to abandon them in danger and feed them to the slaughter. Mankind have gone astray and been subjected to all kinds of hardships without any comforter. They have been in need of a right shepherd, a genuine one with tender feelings for the sheep, one to whom they could be loyal and submissive with perfect safety to themselves. Who could be expected to care for these poor human sheep more than the Creator himself does? It would be a poor kind of Creator that would not take an interest in his creations, especially creatures with feelings and dependent upon his guidance and provision and needing his protection from the enemies. The true and living God is not a heartless, self-centered Creator with less pity and consideration than what a human shepherd has for his own sheep. The very quality of tenderness and fondness that a lowly shepherd feels for such trusting, obedient, harmless creatures was implanted in the human heart from the time the Creator made the perfect man and commanded him to have dominion over all the lower animal creation. It is in mankind's favor that God the Creator likens men to sheep, for that discloses a tender feeling that he has for his human creatures. If they are like sheep to him, then it must be that he views himself as their shepherd. He also appreciates the responsibility that becomes his as their shepherd when they are in perilous conditions. If they have strayed and lost their way and come to the prey of vicious men or wild beasts, then it becomes his part to go out, make a search, and try to recover the poor sheep at any cost. Although it called for great condescension on his part, the loving Creator, faithful to his creatures, has not held back from doing this in discharge of his responsibility as mankind's shepherd, promising to take this action at the time of our direst need. God, the Creator, caused his prophet to declare this, quoting from Ezekiel, "For thus saith the Lord Jehovah, Behold, I myself, even I will search for my sheep, and I will seek them out. As a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered abroad, so will I seek out my sheep. And I will deliver them out of all places whither they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. And I will bring them out from the people, and gather them from the countries, and will bring them into their own land. And I will feed them upon the mountains of Israel by the watercourses, and in all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them with good pasture, and upon the mountains of the height of Israel shall their fold be. There shall they lie down in a good fold, and in fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. I myself will be the shepherd of my sheep, and I will cause them to lie down, saith the Lord Jehovah. I will seek that which was lost, and will bring back that which was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. But the fat and the strong I will destroy. I will feed them in justice." It must be a serious situation indeed when the Lord Jehovah himself has to perform the part of a shepherd and go in search and recovery of his sheep. With humanity in such a terrible plight as they are today, this appears to be the time of all times when the Lord Jehovah will feel compelled to fulfill his own prophecy, and he himself go to the rescue. And it is. And the activities of the divine shepherd can clearly be seen in fulfillment of the prophecy. The sad predicament of the sheep bespeaks terrible neglect and foul action on the part of someone. Certainly it has been neglect and foul action, not on the part of the Lord Jehovah, but on the part of men who undertook to play the shepherd of God's sheep for selfish reasons, telling Jehovah God to keep hands off. It is not hard to identify these harmful shepherds. Everyone knows whom the people of Christendom have willingly followed or been obliged to follow as their leaders. The religious clergy are well known for claiming their congregations as their flocks over which they are pastors. But in the Holy Scriptures, the political princes are also spoken of as shepherds, the governmental guides and caretakers of the people. So the political rulers of the nations that claim to be Christian are also to be classed as shepherds. With such political shepherds, the religious shepherds have cooperated. They have followed and supported the secular shepherds in their political schemes, even when these went to the extent of seizing dictatorial or totalitarian power, and they have blessed their armies of aggression, leading to the slaughter of millions of the sheep of their flocks. They have led their flocks into becoming with them an active part of this corrupt world. For the sake of the financial and other support of the political shepherds, they have been willing to let their religious flocks lie in a backward state mentally and economically. Especially have they withheld from their flock the spiritual food of God's written word, thus leaving them in a deplorable state of Bible illiterateness. All this has left their flocks exposed to the menace of a new word, the ungodly communism that menaces Christendom itself. Showing up this result of the course of such religious shepherds is the statement made by the New York Times of May 21st, 1953, under the editorial heading, quote, fascism versus democracy, end quote, that despite the billions of dollars of American support poured into that one-time fascist land, and now quoting from the New York Times, Italy has the largest communistic party in the world outside of the Soviet bloc, and would now have a communistic regime but for our help, end quote. These religious and political shepherds have sheared and fleeced their own claimed flocks and fattened themselves at their expense and driven them in ways ending in death and destruction. Not only that, but they have been guilty of invading the true flock of the Lord Jehovah and scattered his sheep. This occurred especially during what Jehovah called the cloudy and dark days, the period of World War I, when the witnesses of Jehovah were swept by a wave of persecution throughout the world at the instigation of the religious shepherds of Christendom. With clear foresight, Jehovah God prophetically said to the shepherds of Christendom, quote, "With force and with rigor have ye ruled over them, and they have scattered, and they were scattered, because there was no shepherd, and they became food to all the beasts of the field, and they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains, and upon every high hill. Yea, my sheep were scattered upon all the face of the earth, and there was none that did search or seek after them," end quote. To this day, since that First World War, Christendom has failed to produce a shepherd or an organization of shepherds able to gather men of all nations into one harmonious flock within one secure fold. The civilization that she brags of is threatened with extinction. There is no mistaking it. It has been left absolutely to the Creator, Jehovah God, to rescue the sheep-like ones of mankind. To him all the lost, strayed, sick, diseased, broken sheep who hunger and thirst after righteousness, yes, to him all must look. If they do so, taking him at his word, they will not look in vain. He says, "I myself will be the shepherd of my sheep." This he has declared. He has acted as he has declared. And how? By raising up one competent, proved shepherd to seek after all his sheep and gather them together in the unity of the family of God. This is the very thing he promised, saying, "Therefore will I save my flock, and they shall no more be a prey, and I will judge between sheep and sheep. And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them. Even my servant David, he shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. And I, Jehovah, will be their God, and my servant David prince among them. I, Jehovah, have spoken it." Who is the shepherd prince whom Jehovah has now set up over his sheep to save them and to feed them? It is the great Son of David, Jesus Christ. He is the heir of the kingdom covenant that Jehovah made with King David. This covenant guaranteed that he would raise up to King David a seed or descendant who would sit upon the throne forever and whose kingdom would never end. "19 centuries ago, when he rode in royal style into the city of Jerusalem, the multitude in his procession kept crying out, 'Hosanna to the Son of David!' That is to say, 'Save, we pray, the Son of David.' For thousands of years King David had been dead, but we do not need to wait for his resurrection from the dead or Jehovah to fulfill his promise. The name David means beloved and applies to Jehovah's Messiah, his Christ, or anointed one. Jesus Christ is the one of whom Jehovah's God said from heaven, "This is my Son, the beloved, whom I have approved." He is therefore the greater David, or beloved one. Even King David of old spoke of him as his Lord or superior, saying, "Jehovah said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies beneath your feet." After preaching to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, Jesus died faithful to God without forfeiting his heirship to the covenant for the kingdom. So God raised him from the dead and received him up into heaven and seated him at his own right hand in the throne of Jehovah, far above the one-time earthly throne of his forefather, King David. As a lad, his forefather David was a shepherd, unafraid to face a lion and a bear for the deliverance of his father's sheep, or even to engage a giant in combat for the deliverance of Jehovah's human sheep, the nation of Israel. In turn, David looked upon himself as a sheep of his God. He composed the 23rd Psalm, which opened with the words, "Jehovah is my shepherd." Likewise, when Jesus Christ was upon the earth, he too was a sheep and became a shepherd. He confessed Jehovah as his great shepherd and himself as Jehovah's sheep, and the scriptures speak of Jesus as the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. Jesus acknowledged himself as being the one whom Jehovah God appointed to take care of his earthly sheep, even to laying down his life for them. In a beautiful illustration, he said, "I am the right shepherd. The right shepherd surrenders his soul in behalf of the sheep." And that he followed the occupation of his heavenly Father as a shepherd, Jesus further said, "My sheep listen to my voice, and I know them, and they follow me, and I give them everlasting life, and they will by no means ever be destroyed, and no one will snatch them out of my hand, and no one can snatch them out of the hand of the Father. I and the Father are one." Even as the king of the nation of Israel, David, was spoken of as the shepherd of his people, so was Christ Jesus. Jehovah said to David, "You shall shepherd my people Israel, and you shall be a leader over Israel." Israel's judges, who preceded King David, were called shepherds, Jehovah speaking of them as the judges of Israel, whom I command to shepherd my people Israel. This is true also of Jesus Christ. When his Father Jehovah God makes him king of the new world, Jesus does not cease from being caretaker of sheep, lowly though that occupation may seem. He becomes a governmental shepherd of all his subjects, for they are the ones for whom he surrendered his human soul, laid down his human life. Therefore, ye shepherds, hear the word of Jehovah. Thus saith the Lord Jehovah, Behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my sheep at their hands, and cause them to cease from feeding the sheep. Neither shall the shepherds feed themselves any more, and I will deliver my sheep from their mouth, that they may not be food to them. The time is here for a change. The indignant owner of the sheep has decided for the dismissal of all those in Christendom who have claimed to be the religious and political shepherds of his sheep by the grace of God, but who have led the masses of mankind into the mess it is today. His swift action in this regard was foreshadowed when his prophet said, I cut off the 3 shepherds in 1 month. He will require his sheep at their hands. Whom then would the Lord Jehovah send forth visibly to represent him in his pastoral work? Who would these most likely be? Who could these be other than those whom Jehovah God is using, those not ashamed to bear his name, to speak in his name, Jehovah's own faithful witnesses? And how appropriate is, for his own one shepherd, Christ Jesus himself, declared this, and he declared himself to be the faithful and the true witness. This shepherd king would therefore use as his representatives men of his own class, men who are true witnesses of the Most High God. However, at the close of World War I, the remnant of Jehovah's Witnesses were themselves like a flock that had been scattered. The enemies of God's kingdom were duplicated. The action taken by Judas and the religionists and the political shepherds of Jesus' day, and had rejected Jehovah's shepherd king. This they did by rejecting the kingdom message and by persecuting his followers, the message bearers. They had thus given final fulfillment to the prophecy, "Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered." Hence the scattered remnant had to be gathered first if they were to share in the pastoral work of Jehovah under his shepherd king. From 1919 on, the loving Creator proceeded to the reassembling of his sheep, for the political and the religious shepherds of this world made no effort to do so. Therefore, someone else had to. He caused his sheep to hear the voice of the one he had raised up and put in charge of his flock. The voice was the message of the shepherd king, the greater David. It assured them that God's kingdom had been established in his hands, and that this good news of the kingdom must be preached in all the inhabited earth for a witness to all the nations before the complete end could come upon this world. The sheep of his royal little flock knew this unique, inimitable voice of the greater David, and they responded. From the ends of the earth to which they had been scattered, they flocked together in their thousands into a unity of organization under his care. There they would be safe against the approaching end of the world and would be sure of life-sustaining spiritual food. But these sheep-like followers of the Lamb of God have not been idle. Throughout the years there had to be a great deal of action on their part, for it was necessary for them to copy their leader and go out searching for the strayed and scattered sheep and serve them the needed spiritual food and guide their sheep to the fold of divine care and protection. As an acknowledgement that Jehovah God had regathered them, and as a confession that they were his flock, the remnant of the little flock embraced the name, distinguishing them as the witnesses of Jehovah. That was in 1931, but to this day they have lived up to that name. It is besides the point for the enemies to cavil at them and ask, who made them his witnesses? Rather let the enemies point out where they have failed to do what the name calls for, bear witness to Jehovah. The gathering of all of God's sheep alive on the earth was not fully accomplished by 1931. The divine caretaker, who had made himself responsible for bringing together and feeding his own, broadened the vision and understanding of his regathered remnant, yes, in the year 1931. He opened their eyes to see that there was a great shepherding work for them yet to do. Multitudes of persons of goodwill had to be marked in their foreheads by the truth of life everlasting, the remnant had to go out and hunt for these people that cried and sighed because of all the abominable things committed in Christendom. They must mark them in the seat of intelligence, that they might identify themselves as belonging to Jehovah God and as being subject to his King, Jesus Christ. This has proved to be a tremendous work. Jesus, the right shepherd, died for more than the little flock of those inheriting the heavenly kingdom with him. He died also for those who will attain to perfect human life in the earthly paradise of the new world. These he must begin to gather now before the end of this old world and the start of the new. In view of the oncoming world destruction, they must be marked for preservation. It was these that Jesus meant when he said, "And I have other sheep that are not of this kingdom fold. These also I must bring, and they will listen to my voice, and they will become one flock, one shepherd." That mention of one shepherd fits in with Jehovah's prophecy of our day. "I will set up one shepherd over them, and I will feed them, even my servant David." It identifies Jesus, the royal son of David, as being the one Jehovah spoke of as my servant David, the one shepherd. It is only because there is the one shepherd that the unity of one flock can be created. Earth-wide unity regardless of the great variety of nations from which the members of the flock are gathered. In glaring contradistinction to this hopelessly and destructively divided old world, the Almighty Jehovah has successfully accomplished this unification of his one flock under his one shepherd, his reigning king. There is no attractive, unifying force in the universe like the one living and true God and his one shepherd king. "And I, Jehovah, will be their God, and my servant David prince among them. I, Jehovah, have spoken it." What unifying power there is in that declaration. As soon as the regathered remnant of God's royal little flock saw in his word that the work of his one shepherd was to gather his other sheep, bring them now before the old world ended in disaster, they enthusiastically set themselves to join him in his pastoral work. In this way, their entire theocratic organization became a pastoral organization. With joy, shouting, and the clapping of hands, they hailed a disclosure in 1935 from God's Word that a great crowd, a numberless drove of those other sheep, was to be assembled out of all the nations and tribes and peoples and tongues before this world's final tribulation, and that these also must actively serve Jehovah God day and night at his spiritual temple. Ever since then, they have rejoiced, and how God has rewarded their pastoral work. Every year, they have greeted and welcomed the influx of the multitude of the other sheep into the flock of God's temple. The other sheep have taken in the spirit of the little remnant. They have come to realize their obligation to copy the one shepherd and take part with him in searching for still other strayed, stolen, and scattered sheep. So they have gone forth and loyally worked side by side with the remnant under the leadership of the heavenly pastor, the greater David. Not even the ruthless rule of fascism and Nazism and communists and religious totalitarian dictators, no, not even the outbreak of a second global war halted the spread of their pastoral activities earthwide. The Shepherd King, Jesus Christ, was not one to let dictatorial regimentation of the people and total mobilization of the warring nations discourage his sheep away from the gathering work. He continued on the offensive. He encouraged them to plan and organize for even a larger work. In 1942, through God's holy word, he revealed that World War II would not merge into the world-smashing Battle of Armageddon, but would be followed by a peace, a post-war period. Such peace, would it last? To that question, the answer that Jehovah's Witnesses gave from the Bible was to quote God's own flat no. However, for as long as the peace before Armageddon would last, there would be a vast amount of work, urgent work, to be done all over the earth, and this in lands where the search for the other sheep had not yet penetrated. With such Bible-inspired confidence in a post-war pastoral work, and with the determination to prepare for it at once and to go on the offensive immediately, the missionary training school, the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead, was conceived in the year 1942. In February of 1943, during the very throes of World War II, the first class of students, all of them already ordained witnesses of Jehovah, began their studies and training for a term of 5 intensively packed months. Early in the following summer, just 10 years ago, the School of Gilead sent forth its first graduates, 84 in number. How long this free missionary school would keep open its doors, how long it would hold classes, graduating 2 highly trained missionary groups each year, was not known back there in that war-torn year. But the great overseer of the sheep, by his one shepherd, has provided the funds right up until now. And today in this audience and sitting before this platform, we have missionaries that have returned from their foreign assignment to attend this glorious assembly of Jehovah's Witnesses. Out of that first class, there's 48 of them sitting right over there. Will you stand, please? The first class of Gilead graduates coming back. And then we have the second class. 30 of these have returned from their foreign assignment. Just keep standing. How about the second class getting up? And the third class. And now the fourth. And the fifth. I might say that these are not all the missionaries. Not all of them could get back here. And the society, even though you brothers have contributed large sums of money to help get many back here, they couldn't all come, but we certainly are happy to see such a fine representation. And then there are quite a few here from the sixth class. And the seventh class. And the eighth class. And the ninth. And the 10th. And the 11th. And the 12th. And the 13th. And the 14th. And the 15th. And the 16th class. And the 17th. And now the 18th. And the 19th class. And the 20th class. I think all of these fine missionaries and full-time workers in Jehovah's service are real happy to be out here in the center ring near the platform and to see their fellow workers who have come from the ends of the earth to this assembly. They come from over 120 lands to get here to preach this good news of the kingdom in other lands and to come back here and get the thrill and the excitement and the spiritual food of this assembly. They're all going to continue on in this foreign service in full-time work somewhere where the society has sent them, and the majority of these that you see here by far have return trip tickets. May Jehovah bless you when you go back in your work. Sit down, please. And then today, we have a little group that haven't gone out in the missionary work yet. It's the 21st class. They're right here in the stadium. Would you like to stand up a minute, please? Thank you very much. They've just finished school, but they have a heart and mind, just like all of these other missionaries that stood up for us this afternoon. By Jehovah's undeserved kindness and by his Spirit, and associated with Jehovah's organization and the continual study of his word, they're going to go forth with you, missionaries, and preach this good news in other lands. So today, here in the Yankee Stadium of New York City, the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead has the profound joy of graduating its 21st class of missionaries, drawn from 28 different lands. And we're going to send them out to 44 different locations on this earth. Now then, at the same time, we have present in this vast body of onlookers, conventioners, some prospective students, and it's the 22nd class. Will you stand, please? They haven't gone to school yet. They're worried. Will you sit down? Thank you. But all of these brothers that you have seen are called from countries outside of the United States. And now we'll send them to school, and we'll send them off into foreign assignments. At the same time, too, other hundreds of thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses all over the earth, with their hearts, minds, and prayers directed here, applaud this very happy event, the graduation of the 21st class. Not without deep meaning is the Bible name Gilead linked with this missionary school. Gilead was the land just to the east of the Jordan River and lay between the Arnon River on the south and the Yarmuk River on the north. Today it is occupied by the Hashemite kingdom of the Jordan. It is a land rugged with hills and mountains, somewhat like the location of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead in the highland section east of Lake Cayuga up there in New York State. One particular feature attracted the Israelite settlers to Gilead 15 centuries before Christ, and that was its highland grazing ground. The 12 tribes of Israel had reached the 14th year of their long protracted journey, 40th year of their long protracted journey out of Egypt. Provoked into a fight by the pagan inhabitants of these highlands, Israelites under Moses fought and conquered and took possession of the land of Gilead. Of the 12 tribes of Israel, The tribes of Reuben and Gad had a great deal of livestock. When they saw the well-watered tablelands of Gilead, they saw it was suitable for grazing, and they chose to settle in Gilead rather than cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land. To this Moses agreed, provided that the tribes of Reuben and Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh send over a contingent of soldiers to help the other Israelites until they had taken possession of the land of milk and honey. To this they replied, "We will build sheepfolds here for our cattle, and cities for our little ones, but we ourselves will be ready armed to go before the children of Israel until we have fought them, brought them into their place." So in time, the stone flock pens for the 2 tribes and a half dotted the highlands and became a marked feature of Gilead. How fitting, then, that the Watchtower Bible School, which through its graduate missionaries is taking such a forward part in the pastoral work of Jehovah's One Shepherd, should have the name Gilead prominently associated with it. Gilead, too, was the land of one of Israel's prominent judges, Jephthah, the son of Gilead. In behalf of victory over aggressor Ammonites, Jephthah vowed to sacrifice to Jehovah whatever came out first from his home to meet him on his victorious return. His only child, his unmarried daughter, proved to be the one first to meet him there with dance in celebration of Jehovah's victory. She did not rebel at being the one to be thus sacrificed to her father's God, who had vindicated himself over the foes of his people, but before being dedicated to the life of virginity as God's sacred property, not touchable by a man, she and her girl companions went up and down among the mountains of Gilead, bewailing the loss of married life that she must undergo. At the end of 2 months of this, she came home, and Jephthah, in faithfulness to his vow, dedicated her to the exclusive, virgin, pure service and disposition of the God whom he had blessed and who gave Jephthah the victory. In this prophetic true life drama of vindication, his dedicated virgin daughter pictured the great crowd of other sheep who have been gathered already in hundreds of thousands, especially since the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead was formed. With great joy, this modern daughter class hail the victory of the greater Jephthah, their everlasting father. They yield their lives of service to Jehovah God to keep themselves in virgin purity from contamination from this world. They do not violate the vow of the greater Jephthah, the one shepherd who has presented them to the temple service of the Most High God. Another thing, the land of Gilead was noted for its medicinal balm, drawn from the plentiful bushes. Far and wide this balm was carried, and it became symbolic of God's means of spiritual healing. In loving agreement with his product of Gilead and its healing properties, the missionary graduates of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead have carried the curative balm of Jehovah's message of comfort and of reconciliation to all nations, and have applied it for the spiritual healing and recovery of multitudes facing spiritual death. As for the name itself, Gilead means, according to the derivation from the Bible giving it, the Bible gives it this meaning: heap of witness, or witness heap. This does not refer to the quantity, size or the greatness of the testimony that Jehovah's Witnesses have given in all the earth. In obedience to God's orders, the ancient patriarch Jacob, the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, left Syria and the service of his father-in-law Laban without previous notice. He and all of his household and vast flocks and herds were pursued and overtaken by Laban. Before they parted again, Laban proposed that they enter a covenant or a contract. So Jacob raised a pillar and had his servants pile up a heap of stones. And thereon, or by the stone heap, he and Laban and their companions ate a friendly sacrificial meal. The record then says of the stone heap, quoting, "And Laban called it in the Aramaic, Jager Sahathutha, and Jacob called it in Hebrew, Gilead. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead. And Mizpah, for he said, Let Jehovah watch between me and thee, when we shall be hidden one from the other. See, God is witness between me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this heap, and behold the pillar, which I have set up between me and thee. Let this heap be a witness, and the pillar a witness, that neither I pass this heap to go to thee, nor thou pass this heap and this pillar to come to me for harm." Both the Aramaic name, Jager Sahadutha, and the Hebrew name, Gilead, mean heap of witness. The name Gilead is properly drawn by the change of a couple vowel sounds from Gilead, and its true meaning is therefore taken to be heap of witness. The name Mizpah means the watchtower. Just as Mizpah and Gilead, or Gilead, were thus closely linked, so the name watchtower and Gilead, or heap of witness, are tied together in this Bible school of Jehovah's Witnesses for advanced training of missionaries. In the light of what gave rise to these names, Gilead means the heap that bears testimony to the making of a covenant or solemn agreement to keep peace within the family relationship and never to prove disloyal to it or to harm the members in it. Jehovah is the all-seeing one who watches and sees that the binding contract is kept. When we keep the flock of the one shepherd in mind, how appropriate the name Gilead is. It denotes the obligation to unbreakable unity and solidarity on the part of the members of the one flock whom the one shepherd has now assembled. Just as Jacob and Laban swore by God to keep the peace of the family relationship for mutual benefit, so by their vows of dedication to God, the members of the one flock have sworn to keep peace within their ranks and never to seek the hurt of any member of the flock. They are committed to this peaceful, helpful way of getting along together under their one shepherd. This prevents the sheep of the flock from being scattered by the operations of any selfish spirit inside the flock. The peaceful, harmonious relationship of this one flock throughout the earth is a witness, a testimonial that they are the faithful flock of their shepherd king. Jehovah God himself is witness to it, and therefore blesses them with prosperity. The foregoing is the basic meaning of the name Gilead as applied to the missionary school. Still, an astonishing witness to the kingdom of God's beloved Son has been given since the first class of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead graduated 10 years ago. The stream of missionary graduates that is poured forth from that school each year has had a large and outstanding part in the unequal witness delivered and in the vast ingathering of the strayed and scattered sheep into this one flock. And here before us today, in these 20 classes that have graduated from school and have gone forth into the missionary work, we find in this small audience alone 945 that have come to this convention. Ten years ago, the service year of 1943 closed with an average of Jehovah's Witnesses of 109, 794 sheep reporting as in the flock and taking an active part monthly in the pastoral work. They devoted a total of $28,726,000 hours to field activity for the year. And they carried on their service under the 21 branches of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, functioning then despite the rage of global conflict. As this service year of 1953 wends towards its close, the number of branches is over 3 times that many, and the number of sheep and the number of sheep in the flock is on its way to 500,000 publishers throughout the world who are reporting actively in the pastoral work. And this nearly 500,000 publishers are working in many lands never heard from before. Many here in this mighty audience at Yankee Stadium this afternoon are here because of the functioning of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead and the assigning of its graduates to their lands. Even some of this now graduating 21st class are prepared to receive their diplomas of merit because of the activity of previous graduates of this school. This is undeniable evidence that the faithful Creator has blessed the school and that it is a part of His providence. What it has effected in the worldwide witness to God's kingdom is an inerasable proof that Jehovah has kept His prophetic promise and that He has raised up His servant, the greater David, His one shepherd king, and has faithfully used him in the gathering of His scattered sheep. Not unexpectedly, the political and religious shepherds of Christendom are displeased at the success of the assembly of Jehovah's flock. They claim the field is theirs. They claim all the sheep as theirs for selfish exploitation. They resent it that the one shepherd enters their field and calls his sheep out from under their power and brings them into his one flock. By banning the kingdom message and its bearers from what they call their own pasture, they try to prevent the sick, wounded, needy sheep from hearing the shepherd's voice. To turn the ears of the sheep away from the true shepherd's voice, they misrepresent the pastoral work of Jehovah's Witnesses and try to create difficulties for it with the governments of this world. An instance of this in connection with Africa, where the gathered of the sheep out of the nation's tribe, colors, and languages has had phenomenal success. In the Cape Town Parliament, the statement was made by a member of that house that the Watchtower movement was responsible for the Mau Mau atrocities in Kenya, East Africa. The source of this information was admitted to be what appeared in a London, England magazine called The 20th Century of January 1953 under the title Background to Mau Mau. Says the article, quote, movements that combine politics and religion are no new thing in Africa, where the distinction in any case is unknown to the tribe. At any rate, so much have the cults increased that a high Catholic dignitary declared recently in private conversation, and not entirely by way of a joke, that the eventual heir of all ages in Africa will be the watchtower. This latter phenomena, perhaps the most widely spread political religious movement at the present time, is linked, as are so many, with a source in America. In this case, Judge Rutherford, the New York founder of Jehovah's Witnesses, whose English disciples are to be seen any weekend selling leaflets from cloth knapsacks on the drab sidewalks of any English provincial town. They too, like the Africans, want to feel relevant, to kick against authority and the great ones of this world. These movements are all either derived from Protestantism or spread among uprooted ones. There seem to be fewer movements of this nature in the Catholic world, perhaps because of the superior symbolism of Catholicism, its less active education, and its superior psychology, which does not run so often head-on against the main stumbling block of Protestant Africa, the plurality of wives. End of the quotation. As of February 24, 1953, the newspaper Cape Argus said under the heading Watchtower this, quote, it has come to light that the basis of the trouble in Kenya could be traced to the Watchtower movement from America. The organization had distributed its literature extensively in Kenya and in Rhodesia. The authorities were at present investigating the matter, end quote. Later, in the same endeavor to uphold the delinquent pastors of Christendom and to discredit the pastoral work of Jehovah's one shepherd, came the special issue of the magazine Life of May 4th, 1953, with its lengthy article on Africa. On page 126, under the title, Half-Convinced Converts, the writer said this, quote, even the Christianity we have given them seems superficial. I have found that except for those trained by the Catholics, the missions seem not to have produced satisfactory or trustworthy converts. This is at least the consensus among those who have employed mission boys. I can offer no explanation except perhaps that the native is quick to see that the white man seldom practices what he preaches, and it is scarcely enough to teach a boy to sing hymns and to read the Bible, and the girls to cover their comely nakedness with Mother Hubbards, and to expect that the Christian virtues of charity and honesty will be immediately inculcated. End of quotation. Then on page 178, in its editorial on Americans and Africa, this same issue of Life inserts this comment, quote, of U.S. missions in Africa, not the least influential are Jehovah's Witnesses, whose gospel is far from encouraging civilization and abets the Africans' worst daydreams. End of quotation. If by the word civilization that editorial means progress of the people in the arts, science, statecraft of this decadent old world, then Jehovah's Witnesses are far from encouraging it. The crucial point that should be argued, the really relevant question to ask and answer is, are they encouraging Christianity? It is not their fault that civilization today is pagan, even in its religion, and that civilization and true Christianity are not one and the same. The Christianity that the witnesses of the Most High God encourage and work for in Africa, in the African believers, is one that acquaints them with the one living and true God and his provision for salvation by the sacrifice of the kingdom of his Son, Jesus Christ. A Christianity that frees them from their pagan and domestic superstitions and practices, that teaches them to live by Christ's code of one wife to one husband, to bring up their children in the fear, worship, and service of God, to be honest and dependable workers for their employers, to read and understand God's holy book, to live in peace, unity, and brotherly love, although from different colors, tongues, and tribes, and to become preaching witnesses of Jehovah, and thus have a part in the highly important pastoral work of Jehovah's Shepherd King Jesus Christ before this doomed old world civilization ends at Armageddon, and that Jehovah's Witnesses will continue to do in Africa. Jehovah's Witnesses are no political religious movement. They do not combine politics and religion. They wash their hands absolutely clean of this world's politics, known for what it is. They conform to the disciple James' definition of the true religion and undefiled before God and the Father, namely, to keep oneself unspotted from the world, the gospel that they preach, and that the Life editorial said, abet the Africans' worst daydreams, is the gospel that Jesus Christ predicted would be preached in this post-war period. It is this good news of the kingdom, the very same gospel that they are preaching on all other continents of the earth, and that Jesus said must be preached in all the world for a witness to all nations, and this includes Africa too. If the Africans take to this gospel by the tens of thousands, then it satisfactorily demonstrates that they have the same degree of intelligence, the same noble desires and legitimate hopes, the same capability for goodwill toward God, and the same God-given power to recognize the right shepherd's voice and respond to it as all his other sheep on all the other continents are doing. It is in this way that they will lay firm hold on eternal life in God's righteous new world and will enjoy it after this atomic age civilization will have perished forever. On the diploma of each graduate of the Watchtower Bible School of Gilead, this statement appears: he is therefore graduated as specially qualified to engage in educational work, promoting goodwill and working in behalf of permanent peace and the law of perfect order and righteousness among all peoples, end quote. The members of the present graduating class will go forth to 44 nations to show their qualifications for this lofty mission, the same as have the previous 20 classes in the many lands to which they have been assigned to go and preach the kingdom good news. They will cooperate with all other witnesses of Jehovah throughout the field, and the field is the world. Whether some are of the remnant of the heavenly kingdom heirs, or the majority are of the great crowd of other sheep with the earthly paradise as their destiny, Jehovah's Witnesses are one united flock under his one shepherd, fearless of all the howling false shepherds of Christendom, and in defiance of all the malicious slurs and slanders, all the antagonism from the political and religious shepherds of the world, all the persecution and oppression, they will follow their king shepherd in his pastoral work until all his sheep of this generation have been found and gathered out of all the nations into one flock, there safely to abide and attain endless life in Jehovah's new world. And now it's my great pleasure to call up here to the stand each one of these students that have gone through school and to give them their diplomas. They have finished a wonderful course in school. They have been built up in the most holy faith. Their faith is strengthened. They knew what they were doing when they came to school. They were already ordained ministers. But now they're ready to go forward into fields where people know nothing about God's kingdom, nothing about the Bible, and they're to preach the good news of the kingdom. So we'll call a few up here at a time and give them their diplomas. It isn't the diploma that counts. It's the work they do from now on. But this little diploma that they get, this small piece of paper with some writing on it, is important to them because it means they finished school. The first one we have is from Nigeria. He was a member of the Bethel family down there, and of course we're sending him back to Nigeria again. His name is Brother Awama. Brother Awama from Nigeria. And here we have a brother from Brazil. He's going to return to Brazil too, Brother Antao. They can come up in the front if they want to. And we have another special pioneer from England that has gone through Gilead. She's assigned to Austria, Sister Owley. Come up to the front. And we have one here, Sister Baptiste. She came from the British West Indies, and we're sending her back there to carry on her work. Our brother here was from England. He was a pioneer there, and he's getting an assignment to Brazil. Brother Barlow. Bartonek. Brother Bartonek, he's from Austria. We're sending him back to Austria to take care of some circuit work back there, and I'm sure you'll be a real blessing to the people in Austria. We have brought these two folks from the British West Indies, give them a training in school, and now we're going to send them back there to the British West Indies to carry on the missionary work on a greater scale. Brother and Sister Batson. We have Brother and Sister Baracachia. They're from Argentina. We hope to send them to Spain. I'm sure they'll be a real blessing to our brothers there. We have Brother Bean from Labrador. That's a pretty cold place. We're going to send him back to Newfoundland again, and he'll probably get up to Labrador once in a while. Brother Bean. Brother Blashik, he comes from Austria, and we have a big organization there, but we need more organizing, so we're sending him back to the circuit work in Austria. Bono. Brother and Sister Bono, they're from Pennsylvania. They're pioneers here in the United States. but we want to send them to Ecuador to take care of the work in that country. Sister Borman is from England. We're planning to send her to Ecuador too. Bradley, two of them. We have here Brother and Sister Bradley. They're from the state of Washington in the United States. They've been pioneering for a good number of years. We're sending them out in the circuit work here in the United States. We need more good circuit servants here. Brother Brown, he's from Jamaica. We're sending him back to Jamaica as a circuit servant to help organize the company. Brother Brown. Sister Canduso from France. She's been a pioneer over there. We're sending her back there to do some work in Paris. Brother and Sister Cantwell, they're from the United States. He's been working as circuit servant in South Dakota. We want to send him to Eritrea. That's over in Africa. We have two folks here, Brother and Sister Clark from England. There were pioneers over there. We're planning to send them to British Honduras. Brother and Sister Clayton, they're from Texas here in the United States. We're going to send them to Spanish Honduras. Hope your Spanish is good. Critch. Brother Critch comes from Canada. He's had some very fine experiences in the Yukon, and I don't know of any better place in the world to send them than send them back to the Yukon. But the brothers and sisters that have been working in branch offices for more than 20 years have all been asked to come here to this assembly, and they're here. This was all made possible because you showed your love. The American brothers, the Canadian brothers, those in Britain, Australia, Philippine Islands, and I could go and just name all of these countries here and say that all of you, through your generosity and love for Jehovah God and wanting to see this convention, the biggest we have ever had, you have made it possible for these to come. Thank you on behalf of the society. And now you're wondering how many people have come here for the opening day of the assembly? According to the report that the ushers have handed me, the report shows that at the stadium, 77,634 right here in the stadium, and the overflow meeting and trailer city, and we do have an overflow tent here, 48,753, making a grand total at today's session, 126,387. Yeah. It's amazing. We can hardly believe it. But I guess we can only say that Jehovah God has gathered men of all nations into one flock, and here's the flock. And we're happy. The other day up at school, this graduating class, the 21st class, was so enthused about the training they received. None of them knew where they were going until I told them just now this afternoon. That's why you saw some of them gasp and some of them were delighted. All I know are happy. I could see it on their faces. I wish you could have. But a few days ago up at school, they were so delighted about Was it that the school was over, or that you were going in the missionary work? Well, let's say that you were delighted about both. The blessed privilege of studying at Gilead and now soon to receive your assignment. And they tell me that they passed a resolution. It was unanimously passed by the student body, and I'd like to ask Brother Latu to come up here and read to all of you the resolution that all of these students have accepted.
The students asked me to read this resolution and present a copy to the president of the school, Brother Knorr. On this graduation day of the 21st class of the School of Gilead, at this New World Society Assembly, we, the students, wish to express humbly our heartfelt thanks to Jehovah God. We thank Him for the inestimable privilege that has been ours in receiving advanced training in the ministry of His Word, the Bible. We acknowledge with deep gratitude the indispensable oversight of Jehovah's theocratic organization, the keen interest shown toward us by the Society's president, the example of untiring fortitude of the faculty, and the warm association with the Kingdom Farm family. Also, we acknowledge the kindness and generosity of our fellow members of the New World Society earthwide, who contributed to keep the Gilead School going to this day. As we reflect now over the increased knowledge and understanding we have received, we are conscious more than ever before of the weighty responsibility attached to our ministry. As expressed by Christ Jesus, the greatest of all ministers, indeed, everyone to whom much is given, more than the usual will be demanded of him. It is in harmony with these words that we express the determination to serve Jehovah God unreservedly and to advance His pure worship and the interests of His New World Society in